everyone, this is Simone Mitjans from SimoneMitjans.com. I'm a marketing expert and a business growth for practitioners who wanted to put their services in front of the right people. And why is that important to me? Because I know that your services, your expertise can really make a difference in people's lives. So it's my job to help you connect with your audience so that you can spread your message and help more and more people. Today we have Rejane Guerreiro. She is a psychologist and also a neurocreative coach. And she's here to share with us a little bit about her expertise in our business passion story series. I'm always looking for experts who have a great story to share, to inspire other people, and to really let us know what led them into doing what they're doing. And today, that's exactly what Rejane is going to tell us. And welcome, Rejane. Thank you so much for your time today and meeting with me and helping us understand a little bit more about your expertise. So with that said, I would like to hear from you. What inspired you to open your practice and to focus on human development?
Hello, Simone. Hello, the audience, and thank you for having me here. Well, it's an interesting story because when I first came to the United States 20 years ago, I was not expecting to be where I am today. Mm-hmm. Studying psychology, and I first specialized in body-oriented psychotherapy. I thought I was able to understand human being psychological dynamics much better. But although I had studied the psychological dynamics through psychology and understand the body and how body responds to emotion through the body-oriented psychotherapy, I was still missing one part of the human being, which was the brain, the major part.
That's the important part, right?
The most important part was the brain. And 20 years ago, basically, there is not much about neuroscience and fMRI and all the researches we have nowadays. And I started just, looking for myself and studying, going to workshops or seminars where they are presenting the latest findings on neuroscience, and became a much, much more interesting in my career to integrate this knowledge and the knowledge of a psychology and body-oriented psychotherapy. So at that time, I noticed that there is no Brazilian professional in this field in the United States, at least here in New York. And I know at that time, not even in the United States, throughout the States. So in one day, a friend of mine, were studying together, she asked me what I really like, to do in my life and loved, and said, "Oh, I love to deliver, training workshops to make people more aware of their potential, not just in emotional aspects, but also in body and brain." And she said, "Oh my God, you could give us a workshop. What about that?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, that sounds good." And she helped me with the first workshop about 20 years ago here in the United States, because there was no Brazilian professionals to attend this demand from other professionals who would like to understand how to manage, their emotions in their professional, their personal, their social lives. Right. So then I started 20 years ago, and here I am.
Phenomenal. So you started with the Brazilian, fulfilling a demand to the Brazilian community.
Right.
I forgot to tell everyone that you're an international expert. My first international expert in my interview series. And so fulfilling that demand in the Brazilian community, and also that is spread it into the American community. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes. Once we did our first workshop at that time, when we finished the workshop, people asking, when is going to be the next? Mm-hmm. Can you make it in English? I have friends to invite to it. And I said, well, at that time, my English was, 20 years ago, I was, first coming here. And I said, well, let's do it. And we did. And for my surprise, we had a few Americans who attended the event, and Latinos. And we started from there. And since then, we started working with coaching, life coach based on emotion, emotional intelligence. And then, as I said before, I started integrating neuroscience. And then I became an expert after taking my master's in neuroleadership in London, Middlesex University in London. And basically, I'm the only Brazilian professional with this expertise.
Phenomenal. And you see and you support people's professional lives, personal lives here in the United States and in Brazil, correct?
Yeah, fortunately, thanks to the technology, I see many clients throughout the world. In fact, I have clients in Italy and Geneva and Canada, Brazil, throughout the United States, different states. So technology, there is no barrier. You can just go, throughout the world.
Right.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And share with us a little bit, what are the reasons why people come to you? What do they want to know? What do they struggle with? What are their challenges, obstacles, and how you have helped them?
Well, as you know, one of the biggest challenge of a human being is to master their emotions. Right? So when it comes about emotional intelligence, many people are confused. Many people, for example, think that emotional intelligence is to be positive. Yes,
I would think that.
It's part of that, but it's not of that. Because being emotional intelligent requires to understand your own feelings, your own emotions, and specifically how you deal with it. And not just your own emotions, but others' emotions. Because when emotion arises, it's not just on your side. Usually you have something outside the external world that triggers such emotions.
Right.
And we have, more than 1,000 different kinds of emotions.
Wow.
Yeah. And professionally, many millennials look for my job to understand their brain and how they can deal better with these emotions, either fear, shameness, or any kind of anger, irritation, frustration. It's very difficult for a human being to master these emotions, especially in a workplace. I have many clients, they come, although they have this, I have clients from big companies in the United States and here in New York. They have coaching inside the company, but they come to me because they feel they are not understood in their workplace.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, they come privately for one-on-one session, and I do the brain profile. It's a profile based on neuroscience for 60 years of research in neuroscience and psychology and human creativity that reveals how the person prefers to use her brain.
That's awesome. That's so exciting.
Yes. And once you have that profile and the brain preferences that person used or her emotional cognitive style, it turns much easier for her to understand how she's responding that way and not in different way, and where we call blind spots. Many people call weakness, but we don't like this word because I don't think it's a weakness. It's a blind spot because you have all the potential inside of you, in your brain, but sometimes you are not aware of. And with these blind spots being revealed by this brain profile, we can advance the coaching process in a much faster way, in a more productive way, in a much more pleasant way.
Pleasant way. I have some questions coming in.
Yeah.
And I have a question from Douglas. And he's asking, is concentration one of the keys to control and find our emotions?
That's a good question.
I know.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. To control our emotions, I would say concentration. I would substitute this word for attention.
Attention.
For attention. Because our body responds to our emotion and it keeps there as long as you are focused on that emotion. So, but our brain needs a kind of direction to say, wait a minute, what am I feeling now? What I'm gonna do with this? So if you concentrate on that emotion, you are just raising that kind of emotion. But if you allow and accept yourself, I am feeling this kind of emotion, what I'm gonna do with it?
Right.
So it's like the GPS of your brain. You give a direction where to go and how you want to feel.
Perfect.
And not concentrate on that specific emotion.
Right. So our emotions is someone that we are in charge, right?
Absolutely.
We're in charge. And so we don't want it to concentrate on that, but we wanted to pay attention to how you're feeling and then make a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely that. We are totally in charge of it.
Hmm?
We are totally in charge of it.
Right. So that will also put us in a responding versus reactive situation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. That's very interesting what you just said, because reacting comes from your impulse. It's like a defense mechanism. The first impact of our emotion is to react against to it.
Right.
But once you become aware of your feelings, what you are feeling, and how to respond that in an appropriate way, you are managing yourself, you are mastering yourself to really be in charge and say, well, this is not healthy for me, what I want to do, how I want to do, and how I want to feel. When you are aware of your emotion and drive your brain to make these questions, you give time to your brain to not release a lot of cortisol. And then you give another direction on your neural circuitries to give you another way to respond. It's about milliseconds, milliseconds of time to give the new direction on how to respond.
Right. So people come to you because they want to respond better to lives and professional situations, when they're afraid, when they feel ashamed or embarrassed or fearful, maybe shy, right? Mm-hmm. Not heard. And there is this stigma in the corporation world. I have heard from executives about that. If you have a coach, if you have some kind of coach, it's because you're a troublemaker. So sometimes that goes into what you said. Some people don't feel understood. And I never really realized that was one of the obstacles until I heard from an executive about that. Now, what is the difference? Is the brain the same thing as the mind? Would you like to share with us? I mean, I can talk to you and I can sit here and listen to you talk about neuroscience forever. And I just find the subject so fascinating because it's really, it makes a huge impact in our everyday lives and what makes us successful or not. So for people, and even for me, what is the difference between the mind and the brain? And another thing, is it really that we use our right side or left side, or there are more areas to the brain that can contribute to our success?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. Many people are confused as well. What is mind and what is brain?
Mm-hmm.
I go back to the analogy of the GPS. You know, when let's say we have a car. The
Right.
car is my brain, right? The
Okay.
car is my brain. The GPS is the device I have to guide me, to drive me, to take me wherever I want to go.
Okay.
But who adds the information on this device, the GPS, is your mind.
Okay. Okay.
So your mind gives your brain the information, and your brain helps you to go to that direction. But if you don't give the direction, you can go to nowhere. And that's the mind's job. Brain itself holds the information.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, brain itself holds the information, but mind gives the information to the brain. So mind becomes brain.
Phenomenal. And this is a huge, I'm having a huge aha moment. I don't know if everybody else is. So basically, we have the brain that has an amazing potential, but if the mind doesn't tell the brain, doesn't guide the brain in what to do, the brain is just sitting over there,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So that's basically how I am with my husband. I just tell him what to do. I'm the mind and he's the brain.
Exactly.
If I don't tell him what to do, then we don't get anywhere. I'm just,
Yeah.
but it's really interesting. In the same sense of, okay, if you have a career, if you have in your personal life, but you don't have a intention or a goal, you're just going to be moving through the motions and not really creating the experience you want. And that's when we come in. We are in charge of our experiences in
Absolutely.
that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And regarding the brain potential, when we say brain potential, we have all, the mechanisms. It's all there for us to enjoy. But we have to be aware. I love this word, self-awareness.
Self-awareness. I love
Yeah,
that.
if you don't have, awareness of yourself, if you are not aware of yourself or of your potential, you have no way to use it. For example, brain, let's give a little tip about my lecture for next week. When we are born, our brain is still, we still have neurons, bonding together with our brain. So when we start learning things, the brain retains that information. The neurons retains that information and start creating neural circuitries, right? So we have information because was added in our brain.
Right, right.
If we don't add information, we have no way to take that things out. It's like I love analogies. Let me give you another analogy. I play with my clients and I say to them, let's say you have a refrigerator in your house, right? You do have a refrigerator in your house. The refrigerator is there to accomplish what it's supposed to do, right?
Right.
To keep food, to keep everything good for whenever we want to eat it. But let's say if in the middle of the night you want to have rice pudding.
Okay.
If you get up, open up the refrigerator, and look for rice pudding. but there is no rice pudding because you didn't put rice pudding in your refrigerator.
Right.
So the same is our brain. Our brain is here, ready to receive any information and learn any single thing you want to. But if you don't do it, there is no way to take something out if you don't put it in
Right.
our brain.
Right.
So that's the magical thing about brain. I love that. So the more you learn how your brain functions and the more you learn how you can improve all this magical organ in our brain, the more beneficial it will be for you.
Right, right. So real quick, do we use right and left, or there are more areas in our brain that we
Yeah.
are not accessing?
There is, especially this, the NBI brain profile, we are mentioning before. The brain profile shows how we use our brain, but people, there are certain preferences. People sometimes prefer to use more right hemisphere of the brain, and another one's more left hemisphere.
Right.
We cannot say we use only this side or that side, because the brain is a whole component. It's a whole. You use different parts of our brains while we are here having this conversation. Our brains are connecting all over all parts of the brain.
Yeah.
But specifically the prefrontal cortex, because it's the reasoning part of the brain. This is the last part that was developed in the brain. And us, like human beings, have the privilege to have this prefrontal cortex, the reasoning part of the brain. That's where take decisions, create concepts, and choose what we're gonna say, what we're not gonna say, how to experiment something, if this is logical, if this is creative. So in this brain profile, it shows perfectly all the parts of your brain that you use when you are, for example, acting as a parent, acting as a professional, as an instructor, as a student. So in this brain profile, you are able to see in the graphic which part of your brain you prefer to use more.
Right.
But definitely we use our whole brain, but with different preferences, parts of the brain.
Phenomenal, phenomenal. And you do this assessment. It's what is it called again?
NBI. It stands for Needling Brain Instruments.
Okay.
Yeah, and this instrument, as I mentioned before, I apply to all my clients to speed it up the process of understanding their brain, how they function, how they prefer to use their emotional and cognitive aspects, the blind spots, how they can, I would say, transitioning between different parts of the brain to be more emotional and social and even spiritual intelligent.
Phenomenal. Fantastic. Like I said, I can stay here and listen to neuroscience forever. It's a subject that I love it. And what I love is the practicality of it. You have this knowledge, but also you can use in your everyday life. Oh, I have another question. Let me see. How to determine the rate on which people learn and develop? Do all brains have the same potential? Or does it depend on its biology or other spiritual aspects? For instance, can I become Einstein or Tesla if I want to? I love that question.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. Very interesting. Well, as I said before, we have infinite potential. Our brain is there. To be a genius like Tesla or like Einstein, that requires a lot of study. People mention, oh, they are lucky. Believe me, I don't know any expert in their lives that didn't dedicate, I would say, from 24 hours a day, they dedicate 20 hours in certain subject they want to be expert on.
Right.
And of course, as maybe you know, Einstein had a different brain.
No, I don't know that.
Yeah. This is not completely defined if he was born or with that difference in his brain, or he developed, because we know that genetically we can have differences. So, but as a regular human being, we have total condition to learn anything and be an expert. For that, we need, of course, study, practicing, going deep, and with passion.
Yes, that's what it's all about. It's business passion.
Yeah. So biologically, of course, could have, differences when, for example, if someone was born, as I mentioned, with some differences, or I don't like to say anomaly because it's not anomaly, but different from the regular physiology or biology that we have. So we, of course, can have and be a big advancement when you really dedicate to that. And the question also mentioned about spirituality. We're going to talk a lot about this in our lecture on the 25th.
Right.
And definitely spirituality plays a big role on human beings. Yes. Yeah.
So spirituality, the way I see it's basically you tapping into infinite potential, infinite energy, or infinite potential. That's how I see spirituality work in our everyday lives. So basically, it doesn't really matter what kind of background we have or upbringing, as long as we access the different parts of our brain. We should also, as a result, have a different experience. So we are not all condemned.
No. No, we are not.
All right. So with that said,
free will.
right. So I would like to ask you, where can people find you and your work? I know you have a upcoming event in New York City. That's where your office is. And can you tell us a little bit more about this lecture? I'm going to be there. And for people who are local and who are watching this, our interview, I will be happy to shake your hands and meet you in person at the lecture if you decide to attend. So just share a little bit more with people. What is your event about?
Yeah, this lecture is Neuroscience and the Three Intelligences, the emotional, social, and spiritual intelligences, and how to develop and align them to your life purpose. We understand we are not just a physical body. We are not just our brain. We are not just our emotions, but we have something else, that is the spiritual side of us. And in this lecture, we're going to work on these three topics and learn also techniques on how to improve our emotional intelligence, how to deal in a more appropriate way, how to address, these feelings. And obviously, as a consequence, to feel much better in your body, in your with yourself and with others. So it's going to be on the 25th, May 25th, next Friday, from 7 to 9 p.m. at 4 West 43rd Street, Suite 415, here in Manhattan. It's 43rd with the 5th Avenue.
Perfect. Now, for people who can't make it to because they're not local, where can they find you? Can you share with us your website, please?
Yeah, my website is BeIng, like a BeIng, BeIng NeuroCreative.com. And I have the website in both languages, in Portuguese and English. Those who want to read in English is just click an American flag. And I have all the information there for the lecture and also for the brain profile for those who will be interested in know a little more about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope to see you there.
Yes. So they can find you at beingneuroCreative.com.
Yeah. For those who like purchase the ticket in advance, which I suggest to do it, could go to my website in events and purchase the ticket with discount there.
Right.
On my website.
Well, I would be happy to pay full price because it's an invaluable. You can even put a price to information that can really change your life, change your experience, help you to have better relationships, be a better parent, be a better spouse, be a better business owner, be a better professional. So there is really an investment. This is an investment in your well-being and your success. Rejane, thank you so much again for sharing your expertise, your knowledge, your energy with us. And I'm so thankful for you being here. And I'll see you next week. And for everybody else who's watching, thank you so much for your questions. I loved all the amazing questions you sent out. Very smart questions. Like, wow.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Thank you, Simone, for